In less than half a minute, 2 concrete barracks and 120 Russian soldiers would be erased from existence without warning, without escape. At 2:40 p.m., silence hung over the rolling hills of western Russia. In Petrifka village, 2 reinforced buildings stood, filled with soldiers certain they were beyond the reach of enemy fire 46 miles inside their own territory. They were wrong. From the south, a Ukrainian Su-27 streaked just above the ground, carrying weapons it was never designed to hold. 4 American GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, bolted onto Soviet hardpoints with hand-welded adapters, improvised, unstable, but devastating. What followed would expose fatal cracks in Russia's most advanced defenses, collapse millions in infrastructure in mere seconds, and prove that in modern war, precision and timing can outweigh size and strength. So how did 1 pilot and 4 bombs rewrite the battlefield in under 2 minutes? Stay with me, and let's find out. At 2:40 p.m., the skies above western Russia looked deceptively calm. Rolling hills, scattered farms, and the quiet hum of daily life painted a picture of peace. But just 46 miles inside Russian territory, 2 reinforced barracks in Petrifka village held 120 soldiers, men who believed they were safe, far beyond the reach of enemy fire. In less than a minute, that illusion would shatter. The numbers alone are chilling. 2 concrete structures, each designed to withstand artillery fire, could vanish in under 30 seconds. Deep inside, men played cards, ate dinner, or checked their phones, unaware that their names were already written into a different kind of ledger, one kept by physics, steel, and explosives. Beyond the horizon, an invisible net stretched across the sky. The 96L6E cheeseboard radar, capable of tracking targets at 300 miles, swept rhythmically. The S-400 system, with missiles screaming at Mach 12, stood ready to erase intruders in seconds. Yet terrain, timing, and audacity had carved a gap in this armor. For the Russians on duty, it was another ordinary day. For the Ukrainian pilot streaking low beneath the hills, it was the final approach, and soon, the silence would break. The aircraft cutting through the turbulence was no ordinary Su-27. Beneath its wings hung an improvised marriage of east and west, 4 American GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, each only 36 pounds of explosives but engineered to rip through reinforced concrete like paper. Ukrainian technicians had welded custom adapters by hand, steel plates and wiring looms never intended for Soviet pylons. The result was lethal, but unstable. Every air pocket rattled the racks. The jury-rigged mounts flexed, vibrating like loose teeth. With each jolt, the risk grew that a bomb worth $40,000 could shear away before reaching its target. Worse still, the drag of the 4 weapons bled speed and fuel. The AL-31 Farad's engines were burning 15% more kerosene than planned, cutting the pilot's margin to a razor's edge. He had just enough fuel to reach Petrifka, release, and escape. Barely. Inside the cockpit, his eyes darted between flickering GPS and GLONASS signals, coordinates drifting by 50 meters. For a precision strike, that was the difference between success and disaster, and below, the radar net was already stirring. Far to the northeast, the 96L6E cheeseboard radar swept the horizon with cold precision. It could track aircraft out to 300 miles, yet for now it saw only fragments, brief flickers of a contact appearing, then vanishing behind hills. Operators dismissed it as ground clutter, maybe a civilian aircraft hugging the border. Routine, nothing more. But routine is where death hides. The next layer waited. The 92N6E gravestone fire control radar of the S-400. Once it locked, the pilot would have no more than 15 seconds before a 48N6E missile screamed toward him at Mach 12. His only shield was the earth itself, terrain masking him in valleys, erasing him in folds of land. Every ridge crossing was a gamble, 1 second invisible, the next exposed. At Petrifka base, the Pantsir S one-point defense system sat silent, powered down for maintenance. A fortress with its gates wide open, guarded only by complacency. Above the hills, the pilot pressed forward, knowing radar teeth were closing fast, and soon, he would have to climb straight into their jaws. Flying low kept him hidden, but it was also a death trap. At just 500 feet, turbulence slammed the Su-27 like hammer blows, rattling the jury-rigged bomb racks and draining fuel at 15% above plan. The pilot knew the math. Stay low, and he might never make it back. Climb high, and every radar in Western Russia would see him instantly. It was a choice between 2 kinds of suicide. And yet, physics demanded altitude. The GBU-39 seconds required height to glide. Without it, they were worthless steel shells. He shoved the throttles forward, pulling the nose skyward. The aircraft strained against the command, clawing from the earth at 4.5 Gs. His vision tunneled, stomach lurching as blood drained from his head. Master caution lights strobed like fireworks. The left AL-31 Farad's engine surged, coughing in thin air, before he throttled it back and steadied the climb. From 500 feet to 28,000 feet in just 42 seconds, a vertical sprint no pilot was trained to survive. The Su-27 bucked and roared, while behind him, radar scopes lit up like Christmas trees. Would you have climbed into certain death for a chance at victory? Tell me in the comments. The Su-27 clawed upward, tearing through the air at a 60-degree angle, engines howling in protest. From the ground, it looked like a silver spear thrown against the sky. At 25,000 feet, the cockpit exploded in chaos, warning tones blared, master caution lights flared, and the stick trembled as if fighting the pilot's hand. Then came the sound he dreaded, the steady warble of his SPO-15. The SA-21 Growler radar had locked. Seconds later, a 48 N-6E missile erupted from its tube, climbing on a pillar of fire. Traveling at Mach 12, it would cover 120 miles in under a minute. The pilot had less than 20 seconds to survive. He forced the Su-27 higher 26,000, 27,000, 27,500 feet, while his left engine stalled in the thin air. A quick throttle adjustment saved it, but cost precious altitude. His stomach churned as 4.5 Gs pinned him into the seat, vision blurring to black at the edges. The missile screamed closer, but physics gave him one chance, the kinematic dead zone, where the missile's motor burned out before it could tip into its terminal dive. At 28,000 feet, the pilot leveled for exactly 3 seconds, long enough for the weapons computer to solve its equations. He toggled release. One bomb dropped, then another. A half-second later, the last two peeled free, Diamondback wings snapping open. The amber fault light on Bomb 4 turned green the instant it left the rail, armed by separation itself. Behind him, the missile reached its apex. The Su-27 shoved into a brutal -G dive, altimeter spinning like a slot machine. The missile tipped over, seeker searching, but the target was already plummeting through 15,000 feet. Moments later, the warhead self-destructed, scattering fragments over empty farmland. And in the silence left behind, 4 American bombs began their deadly glide toward Petrifka. Freed from the Su-27, the 4 GBU-39 seconds unfolded their Diamondback wings and locked into attack formation. Each weighed barely 250 pounds, yet carried guidance packages more advanced than anything the barracks below had ever faced. At a 15-to-1 glide ratio, they would travel 46 miles for every 3.5 miles of altitude lost enough to reach Petrifka without a sound. But the air was alive with invisible enemies. The R-330 Zytel electronic warfare system spooled up, flooding the GPS spectrum with static. One bomb lost lock entirely, its accuracy drifting by 30 meters. For a soldier inside a barracks, that was the difference between life and death. Yet even blind, the bomb's inertial systems held steady, recalculating with ruthless efficiency. Then fate intervened. A Russian Ka-52 attack helicopter climbed into their path, unaware of the silent storm bearing down at 380 miles per hour. The lead bomb's radar altimeter flagged a collision threat. Algorithms responded in milliseconds, commanding a subtle 5-degree course correction. The formation split like water around a stone, passing just 200 meters from the oblivious helicopter. The pilot below never knew he had threaded through 4 precision weapons. And the bombs continued, hunting quietly toward Petrifka. At Petrifka, the first warning came too late. Sirens wailed as operators scrambled to make sense of radar returns. The Tor M2U screen showed 4 tiny blips moving at 400 miles per hour, too small for aircraft, too fast for birds. Training manuals said, ignore anomalies. Reality said otherwise. On the tarmac, the Pantsir S-1 sat cold, its crew caught off guard. The point defense system needed 45 seconds to power up, but the bombs were less than 30 seconds away. Screens flickered. Hydraulics groaned as the twin Tu-38M autocannons came alive. Soldiers spilled from the barracks, some diving into drainage ditches, others frozen in confusion. The fire control computer locked, but the problem was impossible. Each bomb had a radar cross-section smaller than a seagull. The computer defaulted to the center of the formation, spitting tungsten shells into empty air. At 5,000 rounds per minute, the sky filled with metal, but the bombs cut through unscathed, their glide paths unbroken. Desperate hands reached for missiles, but the 57 E-6 interceptors were useless, each required 1-2 kilometers of arming distance. The GBU-39 seconds were already inside that envelope. Chaos reigned. Shouts, gunfire, and the crack of autocannons echoed across the base, but nothing could stop what was coming. In less than half a minute, the defenders had gone from overconfident to powerless. A fortress with gates wide open, and overhead, 4 American bombs were seconds from impact. At 14 hours, 51 minutes and 3 seconds, the first GBU-39 struck. Its hardened steel nose tore through the barracks roof like a needle through cloth, smashing 2 reinforced floors before the FMU-152 fuse ignited. 36 pounds of AFX 757 explosive doesn't sound like much until it detonates with 5,000 pounds per square inches of overpressure, moving at nearly 5 kilometers per second. Concrete didn't just crack, it liquefied. Steel beams bent and vaporized. Windows became supersonic shrapnel, slicing men apart before they could stand. 17 seconds later, the second bomb hit the western wing of the same structure. 2 impacts within 6 feet of their programmed coordinates collapsed the entire building like a controlled demolition. The barracks ceased to exist. Across the courtyard, the third and fourth bombs slammed into the second building almost simultaneously. One punched into the stairwell, trapping soldiers mid-evacuation. The other detonated dead center, its blast waves colliding with the first to multiply force. The result was annihilation. Walls hurled outward, roof fragments spinning into the air like blades. In just 30 seconds, 2 reinforced military structures and the 120 men inside were erased from the map. Petrifka was no longer a base. It was a crater filled with silence and fire. The smoke had barely cleared when the scale of the strike sank in. 2 barracks, 120 Russian soldiers, and millions of rubles in hardened infrastructure erased in under half a minute. Survivors staggered through rubble, their uniforms shredded, their radios silent. The base commander, stunned, watched his fortress collapse not from artillery or armor, but from 4 bombs no larger than rifles in weight. News traveled faster than fire. Within minutes, alerts rippled across western Russia. Command centers demanded answers. How had a Ukrainian jet slipped through the radar net of the S-400, the crown jewel of Russia's air defense? How could a weapon weighing just 250 pounds destroy buildings designed to withstand mortar fire? Panic seeped into planning rooms. Strategically, the message was brutal. No base, no barracks, no installation within glide range of Ukraine was safe. The dead zone in Russia's air shield had been exposed. Live on the battlefield. Analysts whispered of an uncomfortable truth. American-designed bombs had just dismantled Moscow's aura of invincibility. In less than 2 minutes of destruction, the balance of confidence shifted. And across the region, commanders asked themselves the same question: who would be next? When the wreckage was examined, the conclusions were devastating. The Ukrainian strike had not relied on overwhelming numbers or secret technology. It succeeded through audacity, improvisation, and timing. A Soviet-era Su-27, fitted with hand-welded adapters and guided by nothing more than an iPad and flickering GPS signals, had defeated the most advanced air defense network Russia possessed. The vulnerabilities were clear. The S-400's reaction window of 15 seconds was too narrow against a pilot exploiting terrain. The Pantsir S-1, offline for scheduled maintenance, highlighted the fatal cost of complacency. Even the Zytel electronic warfare jammers, powerful enough to blind satellites, failed to stop bombs with inertial backup. The result? 4 weapons costing less than $200,000 total had destroyed assets worth tens of millions and eliminated a company of trained soldiers. Analysts called it a turning point. If such a strike could succeed once, it could succeed again anywhere along the border. Russian commanders now faced a grim calculus: relocate, harden, or watch their bases vanish in seconds. In war, it is not always the biggest system that wins. Sometimes, it is the boldest choice, made in the narrowest of margins. In less than 2 minutes, a single mission had rewritten the battlefield. 2 concrete barracks, once thought untouchable, were reduced to dust. 120 soldiers, countless weapons, and the illusion of safety all gone in a flash of steel and fire. What mattered most was not the size of the bomb, but the precision of its delivery, the courage of one pilot, and the gap in a system believed to be impenetrable. This strike was more than destruction. It was a message. A reminder that modern war is no longer about numbers alone, but about exploiting weaknesses at the right second. A $40,000 weapon can cripple millions in assets. A single climb into the sky can shift the balance of power across an entire region. As smoke drifted over Petrifka, one truth remained. Every base within glide range now lives under the same shadow. Do you believe strikes like this could reshape the future of the war itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.